Daft Punk with some badass funk. Soul Tree Radio in the Raw. DJ Hunnycomb, Michael-louis Ingram kicking it along with my compadre Digital Diane M. Grassi, and Gary Gray from the Gray Leopard Cove. We are going to be on air till at least 4 o'clock, and then the ball carries on from there to Mr. Gray and the Cove Caravan. Check out Gary Gray, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock West Coast. The Gray Leopard Cove is the place to be. Y'all sit back, chill, and have a cool one, because somebody cool has just stepped into the mix. This is a good brother, and we have a lot of love and respect for him here on the show. He has just come out with his latest tone as he is expanding. We can be the outcome. I sure hope we can, because if we ain't, somebody's in trouble. A book of essays on politics, social justice, and social injustice in the Great Republic and beyond. We are pleased to welcome my brother Anthony P. Johnson. Anthony, welcome to Soul Tree Radio in the Raw, bros.
Hey, thank you, Michael. Diane, how you guys doing today?
Good. We need somebody who's cool-headed, because Michael and I are getting too fired up. And it's hot here.
How y'all enjoying this weather?
It reminds me of that old, I think it was the Twilight Zone, Diane, or Gary, where they were talking about more murders are committed at 92 degrees. Well, I know a few people are going to get it if they don't do something about what's going on right now in this country. And Anthony, you wrote a very timely tome, a set of essays. And I first want to say, again, as always, thanks for coming on. But what inspired you to do a series of essays? Because this is something that, you know, we all read back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, that was, I won't say common for lack of saying it, but, you know, this is something new now, because I don't think people are approaching it in this technological age of blogs and all that in this manner. What inspired you to do this and go this route?
Well, one of the reasons why I started writing what was going on, because I guess in many respects, as hokey that it may sound, that I wanted to kind of make my mark in the world, and I wanted to take a stand on some issues. So I just started writing. I would write, you know, see what's going on around in society in America and abroad. And something that, you know, every time an issue that really touched me, I would simply just start writing about it. And there's just so much going on in the world today. I think we have gotten away from sitting down and putting pen to paper. You know, we you know, people like to talk about the framers of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Well, those guys didn't have TVs and things back then. They didn't have the internet. And what they did was they sat down, and things that bothered them, or things in society that they wanted to change, they would write about it, and they would put it out there to the people, and hopefully the people would read it and share their beliefs and would want that type of change. So in writing We Can Be the Outcome, it was just a series of things that's going on, not just in the city of Philadelphia, but just, you know, but also in our state, in the United States, and like I said, throughout the world. Things that really, I believe, that affects not just me, but so many other people in the world. And my hope was that people would read the stuff that I would write and put out there, and it would give them some food for thought, that they would think about it and say, hey, you know, maybe he has a point there. And, you know, not just talk about what's going on, but here's what we need to do to try to make things a little better.
Exactly. When we had the opportunity to meet you for the first time, you were running for state office, and it was intriguing how your reaction to the outcome of that spurred this book, in part, I would think. But being that you were right there in the midst of all of this, and you saw the political climate in Philadelphia, and you wanted to do what you could to try to change it, how much of the book, I've glanced over the menu and stuff on Amazon, and the book is on Amazon, we'll get a chance to plug that later, but how much of that, and from a material standpoint, inspired that section of the book, just your own experience there with the political machine?
Vastly. You know, running for state representative really gave me an opportunity to not just see what was going on in my own community, but share, you know, conversations what was bothering people in other parts of our city. And I still think Philadelphia is the greatest city on earth, despite a lot of the misfortunes that we're having and the lack of great leadership in the city right now. But yes, the running for state representative, and I think one of the things that I learned also, Michael, is that we tend to do a lot of talking, but then when it comes time to stand up and be accounted for, we have failed. One of the articles I had written when I talked about, and I spoke about the horrific turnout in the 180 district when during the voting, that 90% of the people stayed home, and they really have lost. I think and not just in our cities, but I think in our country, we have lost the passion for voting because we simply think that voting doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And I got a chance to see that firsthand, that people really just did not care who won. The response was overwhelming. Nothing's going to change, so why go out and vote? And at the same time that's happening, you see all this legislation that's being pushed through to keep people from voting. One of the Republican representatives said that Pennsylvania is a state that Romney's going to win. We're going to win that state for him. And a lot of controversy was surrounding that. But then 2 days ago, they uncovered the reason why he said that so confidently, because something like in the 90s percentile of people who are not registered to vote, and those individuals who are not registered to vote are, in essence, i.e., Democratic voters. So this is why he could so confidently say that. So that's running for state representative and writing, that gave me a lot of great insight to write about it. And some people were moved by the writing, that I talked about that. But unfortunately, there's still a great number of people that really do believe in that philosophy that voting simply just doesn't matter. Nothing is going to change. People, that are running, that get elected, they're corrupt, so why fight it? And that's frightening.
Yeah, it is frightening. When we started at the top of the show, we were talking about the situation in Illinois where Tammy Baldwin, who's a war veteran running for office there, her opposition is this rather boorish white male who is a deadbeat dad, essentially, doesn't pay his child support, and in spite of all of that, he has caused the issues to be deflected from the reality that everything seems to scream that this woman, Tammy Baldwin's the best candidate, but because he is afforded, this other man, Walsh, is afforded the opportunity to say whatever he wants because he gets the cameras in front of him, it deludes everybody from what the real message is, that this woman is being disrespected and you're not really talking about the issues. To a similar degree, did you find that is exactly what happened on top of the malaise back in the 180 that you were running for in Philadelphia?
Yes, absolutely. Joe Walsh is the guy, and he just recently said that here's a woman who's a war hero who lost both legs. He's saying, well, we should respect her, but she's not a hero, blah, 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 blah. And that's unfortunate because, like you said, she is showing that she is the best candidate, but they're spinning it, and the media loves that. Same thing in the 180 district. Terri, Willmott, and we put out, so much a wealth of information that the Library of Congress would have been proud of us. Who the candidates were, who the incumbent was, what he's done, or their lack of things he didn't do. And yet he still went out. His slogan was a vote for Cruz, secure your future by voting for Andrew Cruz. How? How do you secure that? And the media, even the local media, they didn't pay a lot of attention to that. They focused on him, but not in the way that they should have. Instead of saying, here's all the, corrupt things that this man has done since he's been that state representative, and the things that Terri, Willmott, and I were putting out, from YouTube and just all the social media, the blogs and stuff, where people had a wealth of information, so they could say, you know what, I have all this information sitting here, what's holding me back? And yet he still won.
Indeed, that's exactly right. We are speaking with Anthony P. Johnson, whose new book, We Are the Outcome, is offering the basic food for thought that I think a lot of folks out here need to digest. I am going to switch the questioning over to my colleague Diane Grassi to throw something in the pot.
Yeah, I think that your analysis about people feeling disenfranchised from the voting process is accurate. However, I think it's on every spectrum, every economic base. It's right, left. And I think that our government and our politicians, many of whom have made a lifetime career out of making a lot of money as politicians, have had a big part in that. And I think that I don't think that we've had more corruption in our government and our legislators in this country ever than we do now. And so I don't always agree that it's just because people are being discouraged from voting systematically, but moreover that we are being cut out from the process on many a level, local, state, county, federal, and I just wonder how we can turn this ship around, because very often when I go to vote I feel, well, I'm going to do it because it's my duty, but it doesn't really matter. I feel that way quite a lot.
Yeah. I think that one way we can turn it around is that, you know, we as a society we have to be more involved. We have to be more engaged. I agree with you 100%, Diane, with the corruption and the spin. We've never seen it at this level. And I think what people have done is that they have just tuned out. I think Obama in 2008, he gave the country the opportunity to see that when you get involved in politics, just the regular, 9 to 5 or, American, that things could get done. I mean, here's a guy that was able to win, over great odds. And, he himself attributed that to the people. And when that happened, for me, I said, the people finally, for the first time in a very long time in a political spectrum, has shown that they play a part. And when they play a significant role in the government, things can happen. And then they just kind of everybody went back to just doing whatever they were doing. It was like, we voted him in, but not the fact that we were just voting him in. They were involved. They were knocking on doors. They were asking the tough questions. They were challenging the candidates. I'm not going to just vote for you because you say you're the better person. Why? And that was 2008, and I felt like that was it. I said the people have come back. We saw this for decades, where people, with the common folk, would challenge the incumbents as well as the candidates who wanted to win at every level. Yes. That they made them work hard. They made them get out there every day and answer the tough questions and to be accounted for. And then in 2008, we disappeared. And in 2010, you saw a complete shift. The Republican Party was able to win sweeping parts of the House and the Senate, because many of those same people that went out and not just voted but actively participated in the process, they stayed home. They got disenfranchised within a year, 2 years. They were, see, that's what I said, nothing happens. And then they just stayed home. They got out of the game again. We have to be able to get in and stay in, steer the course. One thing that I talk about in the book, when I talk about, when Franklin Roosevelt, when he was president, it was 10 years of economic depression. Many people they think that it was a year or two and then that was it. It was 10 years. And by 1938, it had bottomed out again. But the people at the time, they stayed the course. They stayed active in a political spectrum. So I believe if we are to turn this ship around, we have to get involved and we have to stay involved. We all have our own issues that we have to address, but the only way the government works for us is that we have to be engaged in it. And until we do that, on a consistent basis, then we are going to come right back to this. 2008 was in my opinion, not just the fact that people talk about President Obama becoming president, and that was monumental. I didn't look at it from that. I said, look at the people. This is the first time that I can remember that the people have been so engaged in this process. People were making themselves knowledgeable of what was going on, why I'm going to vote for this person, why I'm going to vote for that person. People like to say, that the political, quote-unquote, pundits like to say, well, President Obama at the time, he took all the African-American votes. That's not true. John McCain got 10% of the African-American vote. That's because the people were well informed. You could ask anybody, well, why are you going to go with John McCain? Well, I believe he's a war hero. He's been there. He's passed some policies. He's bipartisan. We see that the politics in our government from every level is starting to turn to, it's just we're either voting straight Democrat or straight Republican. John McCain always reached across party lines. People were knowledgeable. For those 2 years, people made themselves knowledgeable why they were going to vote for one of these individuals. We didn't do that. We haven't done that since. My hope is that, Diane, that we can get back to that, and this time just stay there, stay engaged, stay involved in the system.
There's just one main problem, and it hasn't been rectified, and John McCain tried to do something about it, but he was a miserable failure at it, and that is campaign financing. And when you have congressmen and senators who have been in the House and the Senate for 40, 50 years, Charlie Rangel, for example, who cheated on $600,000 in taxes, and he's in the fight of his life now at 82, counting 10 votes here, 10 votes there, because it's now gone to federal court. He's a Harlem congressman here in New York. The point is that they build up these big kitties, and they become multimillionaires. And if for somebody like you've got, as you well know, you've got to go up against these guys. And I don't believe that somebody should be in office for 40 or 50 years and then become wealthy people where they get very lazy.
And I agree with you 100%. Again, you had these same individuals walking around, Diane, talking about all the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson this, Thomas Jefferson that. But they don't remember when you ask them, well, what did Thomas Jefferson say about politics and elected officials staying elected officials for 30, 40 years? He said, Jefferson said, in essence, I don't care how good you think you are and how moral you think you are, the longer you stay in politics, the more and more you are susceptible to corruption. He was saying right there that, again, at some point in time, we have you guys, not us, but the next generation has to put in place that you cannot sit at this table of our government and make a career out of this. And you're right. Exactly. I couldn't compete with an Andrew Cruz who had money coming from everybody. Well, yeah, we know he's corrupt, but he's part of the Democratic machine in Philadelphia. Who are you? We know a little something about you. You've done this and that. You're a community activist. But where's your money at? You don't have any money. The money you're using money from your own paycheck. Good luck with that. Let me know how that works out. Campaign finance, everybody in our elected office keeps talking about it, but I'm not seeing anybody saying we're going to do this, and we're going to get it done whatever it takes.
It's funny, guys, I'm getting feedback from the chat room. That's definitely much in spirit what you're saying, Anthony. For every vote we don't cast is a vote the Republicans get. They are depending on this by limiting voter registration, especially the Democratic voters. We need to get registered, and we need to vote. Too much money being spent on campaigns and ridiculous, in caps and with dollar signs. Cue the baseline for the OJs for the love of money. In the mix, we want to throw Gary Gray into the pot. Cowboy Reggie is in as well. But Gary, you have any questions for Anthony Johnson?
One thing that and he mentioned it, the thing about inclusion. We have a disabled candidate in Illinois, and this woman is fighting to get a representative, and the inclusion will not happen if people don't go out and vote. Now, how do we bring people to the polls?
Hello?
Yeah, Anthony?
Yes, sir.
We're speaking about the issue of inclusion, especially regarding the situation in Illinois and Tammy Baldwin being somebody who wants to serve our country, in the most intimate way by running for office after having been in the war, and how do you encourage more people to go ahead and understand that that is the issue, because she's disabled or represents the disabled community to a degree. Are we Xing them out the same way everybody else is being X'd out or being marginalized by their group?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the same thing. What Tammy Baldwin is doing, and you have to include everybody, and I think that's something that we have to, what you have right now, Michael. You have the media where that's something you have to do. That's something that I have to do. I encourage everybody to get involved in politics. Because if you really want change, you have to get involved. My father,
That's right.
I think I said this before, my father used to tell me and my siblings that, listen, he always believed, he said at one point in time in your life, I believe that you should run for office. I think you should run for political office. I don't care, what it is, so you can understand how things run. And in doing that, whether you win or lose, the election, you have a better understanding. And then you can take what you learn and you can go touch somebody else and get them to get involved. So individuals with disabilities, people of minorities, everybody needs to get involved in the political system. Even if you don't run, here's a woman who has given her life to her country. And I'm not saying, and we had the same argument about John McCain. Hey, John McCain served a country bravely, but that doesn't necessarily made him a presidential material. But nonetheless, he still should be inspired and motivated to do it. We have to get more people involved. You even have here in Philadelphia, for example, you have some in city council who have Wilson Good Jr. to be exact. He's put out something about 2 years ago of really reaching out to the youth to get them involved in the political system. Volunteering, seeing how the system works, because he himself has said he wants to see more young blood in our system. He believes that in time it will be the younger generation that will make the changes that they have failed so miserably at accomplishing. But so many of our youth are just not interested in the system.
Well, I want to ask you this, too, because I know you're very passionate about education. Throughout this country now, and I learned this recently, most high schools are not teaching government or civics classes at all.
Good point.
And I think, and that's 101 getting involved.
Yep.
And I can't for the life, other than keeping people ignorant, which I know is part of the agenda here, I can't for the life of me understand why they would do something like that.
It's sad. It's sad because the reason why I have loved politics so much is because I was introduced to history almost from by first grade. We were learning, and it never ended. They took this stuff. They took something so important to know, in my opinion, was to keep and is keeping the people ignorant. That's why if you talk to some political scientists, they tell you 2008 was a remarkable year because people made it a point of knowing, going on Google, going to the libraries, going online, looking at their history, of what was going on, how this country became what it was. They took the civics and the political sciences out of the classroom is to marginalize, so people don't know what's going on, how their government runs. So when you can't pick up the phone and say, hey, Mayor Nutter's office, you guys aren't doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but then they know how to spin on it because you really don't know it. So, yes, that was one of our education system in America is an absolute joke because so many people. But 3 years ago, political scientists got together in Oklahoma and asked all the high school students in Oklahoma, some 2,000-3,000 schools in Oklahoma, who was the president on the $1 bill. The majority of the students that was asked couldn't tell you who it was. I remember Christian Matthews he was outraged on his show that they didn't know. He said, you see, and this is why, political science and civics classes need to be back in our school system. Because our kids, the next generation, did not know that who was on the $1 bill. They went from Jimmy Carter to Abraham Lincoln. And what Chris Matthews said, and even what the guys who did the research said, many of them already had the money in their pocket. They could have simply just went into their pocket and looked at it, but they didn't know. They did not know that. So you're absolutely right, Diane. It is to keep the public ignorant. It's to keep the public ignorant, and also now it's to make sure that they don't have an opportunity to vote.
There you go.
So when legislation is passed, like cutting food stamps, cutting health, making sure that people don't get health care, the first thing that will come out of these individuals' mouth well, you know what, you really don't have nothing to say because we can look and see that you didn't even vote. You didn't vote, you don't have a say. Goodbye.
Yep, Anthony, it's worse than that. As I'm getting some stuff in the chat room, we are served up some good stuff from there. Here's some other food for thought. When it costs $1 billion or more to get into a job that pays $400,000, that's stupid. I would contend it's not only stupid, it's surely designed because clearly it's not about the salary or the position, it's the influence that comes with it. But it says that not everyone can run for president. Part of the American dream was that anyone would be able to run. And at the current rate, so many of our youth are being placed in the system that they will never be able to vote. You yourself know, Anthony, in the state of Pennsylvania, there was a state bill 1318 or 1317, I believe was the bill, trying to stop prisoners from voting. And, of course, the privatized prison system is a setup. Also from the chat room, the youth feel that they are disenfranchised from the government. As you were saying, the Illuminati are the ones who are directing the Republican agenda, which is to exclude a lot of people. They want to do away with the elderly, disabled, poor, minorities. And in the spirit of all of those things, you having seen it up close and personal, you chose to confront the storm and let it pass through by writing your feelings down on paper when you could have easily turned away, or you could have easily just decided you were going to be part of the system in terms of wanting to get yours.
Exactly.
The question to ask is, why did you decide to go this route?
Again, so what I said earlier, as hokey as it sounds, I just believe in doing right. I believe that this country is not number one. Well, here's where we are number one at. We're number one in incarceration. We're number one in defense spending, and we're number one with most Americans believing that there are angels. We're not number one in education. And I believe that instead of being part of that collective system that, hey, Anthony, you got yours. You went to school. You've been blessed to go to school, earn some degrees, do this. Just go with the flow. This does not include you. What we're planning on doing is not for you.
Right.
You're okay. You're not wealthy. You're not rich. Far from it. But you'll be okay. We're going after those who don't have.
And
I believe that there's not a lot of us out there.
Don't forget, and don't open your mouth.
Right. Be quiet. Go with the flow. Shut up and go, and just keep moving along. I don't believe in that. I believe that I'm taking a stand, and I believe, Michael and Diane and Gary, that there are other people out there, just like me, who are trying to, like you guys, who are trying to fight. We're trying to fight the system. What we're doing now, we're fighting the future, because if this stuff is put through, I think people go to sleep at night thinking that all is right, but you and I, we stay up at night wondering, concerned.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
A great deal of our freedoms and things are being taken away. And get this, what must be done? Now, we sat here and we talk about this. We need to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But does something more drastic need to happen?
Well,
does something more drastic
let me
need to
ask
happen
you,
to wake up the population?
Hold on, guys. Before you guys get into that, I've got to get Cowboy Reggie in the mix here. Cowboy Reggie from Sports Talk and 1450 AM in Richmond. WCLM. Cowboy, first of all, thank you for your patience. I know you've listened to the discourse. I know you got something for us, so throw something in the pot, bro.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be on the air. Shout out to you, Diane, and my man, Big G. Always doing a great job. But, sir, when I look at Philadelphia, I call it Rich Island City. I had a friend of mine, Gigi Golden Girl. I don't know if you're familiar with her. Used to be on the airways, but recently it's gone. Are you familiar with the young lady, Golden Girl? Used to be the DJ there.
Mhm.
Okay, well, she was part of the Tyler Fowler case. I don't know if you're familiar with that, the young lady that was killed by her boyfriend named Pooch. And it was a national storyline that even Parks got involved, and they found that he did it. Well, my whole thing, first thing Mayor Netter did when he took office, I'm sure you know this, was to go after the inner city and shut down the pools, shut down Richmond Park, the park and recreation. And to me, that's in the signal that we're going to go ahead and shut all the positive things down so we can get you people upset and mad and get killer death to killing again so we can fill up the incarceration. Also, at one time, I believe the schools were trying to be privatized by the government, and that failed. So I say all that again, sir, that when President Obama came through, I'm going to make it very short, the Democrats had the House and the Senate. They could have got the health care bill passed between 3 to 6 months. But they were so worried about public opinion. They were so worried about, we don't want to look at the bad guys. You can say what you want to say, but George Bush Republicans are the biggest gangsters since Dillinger. They say, we don't care. We're going to come in here. We're going to take what we want, and we don't give a damn what you say about it. And they have people who assist them doing talk radio. That's all I'm saying. Again, I understand what you're saying, sir, but the bottom line is that when you see individuals out there that play for keeps and a lot of them look like us and sabotage the community, I just look at Married Towards Marriage mission that Dr. Carlance talked about in Black Labor and White Wealth. Your thoughts?
You know what? When you spoke about, yes, when President Obama came in, he had the Democrats had the presidency, the House, and the Senate. And as a progressive, a staunch progressive that I am, that was one of the things that I had written the president about. I asked him that now that he has won, and they came in on such a humongous tidal wave of public support.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I want you to pull a George Bush, a Richard Nixon, a Ronald Reagan. Mm-hmm. I want you to stuff this stuff down their throats and pass it. Pass everything that needs to be passed. They can cry. They can call you a socialist. It doesn't matter. Even the president said on numerous occasions, listen, he told John McCain one time, he said, Senator, I was elected president by an overwhelming margin, and the Democrats was given the House and the Senate at an overwhelming margin.
It was a mandate.
That means a mandate, meaning that get it done. So I agree with you, sir. I believe that had that been the progressives, had that been President Obama, I love him, and I think he's done. I think he's handled his affairs pretty decent up to this point. But a lot of my friends who are staunch progressives aren't happy with him because he felt like the same thing like you felt, like many Americans felt, that you had everything and you should have really put this stuff down their throat. But I also do. Here's the thing. Also, the history said I knew he wasn't going to do it just by his rhetoric during the campaign. He was more of he was more of an Abraham Lincoln. But he missed the fine print of what Lincoln did. When the Civil War came about, Abraham Lincoln suspended everything, habeas corpus. He thrust things down Americans' throat at the time because he said these are the things that need to be taken care of. Even when Chief Justice Taney had said a lot of the things that Abraham Lincoln is doing is unconstitutional, Lincoln had even considered throwing him in prison.
That's right. I mean,
so I believe in some instances, yes, because the mandate he got a mandate, and I think the Democrats failed there. Closing down all these programs in the city of Philadelphia. We have meager programs as it is, so you're closing those down. Look at the murder. Look at the shootings. 2 weeks ago, we had 13 shootings in a weekend. Philadelphia Part 2. And for the first time, Chief Commissioner Ramsey, and even the experts are saying they are at a loss. You're at a loss. Here's the problem: you are allowing too many guns to flow into this city, and the chief participant in doing that is Florida.
That's right.
If you have a record here, Michael,
Virginia,
and you
too.
can't get a gun here, you go right online
That's right.
to Florida, and they'll mail you a gun. You'll get it in 24 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
Virginia, too. Don't forget Virginia.
No, Virginia's always been notorious
too.
for that, Reggie. But, guys, to your points, the chat room is cranking it today. To Diane's point about Congress and Senate members being in office for 40-plus years, obviously this was not the original plan. Serving in Congress and Senate was not an employment option. Also, it was set up to allow citizens to serve in the governmental process for a term. It was not a job or career. And, because, and I think you addressed that in the book, actually, Anthony, but if this had been done, the things that we are talking about had the president been more like Rudy Ray Moore and Dolomite instead of trying to be pragmatic and trying to please everybody, he would be a one-term president because, as you see now, the pressures from the other forces to have him capitulate by nullifying everything that he has done. And in spite of what progressives would have wanted, and I have to be honest, if I was going to vote that year, I did vote, but if it was a matter of a candidate, I would have voted for Dennis Kucinich because he clearly is in tune with the things that I believe would have been beneficial for the country. But, of course, there's that dirty word socialism. Having said that, with all of this laid out like it is, and the president in crosshairs literally, not only with the parties who are trying to take him out, but also forces around the world, which I think you also addressed in the book, too many Americans are not cognizant of the fact that now they're not affected by an American economy, they're affected by a global economy. If you would speak on that a little bit, Anthony.
Right. We it's a global economy now, so now it's about making sure that everybody is happy.
Mm-hmm.
Bullshit.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's bullshit. I mean, I agree with you. I'm saying it just frustrates me.
Here's what I'm gonna say, Diane, on that. If it is about the global economy, Michael and Diane, here's what it is. Then the policies should be passed by way of dare I say it, the European philosophy.
There you go.
Look what Mitt Romney is saying about Europe. He's saying that we're going to have to stop this European-style government. Mm-hmm. Why? Because European-style government address the social issues immediately and they do something about it. They don't keep talking about it.
That's right.
The education situation. Look at the countries: Finland, Denmark, Switzerland. China. These guys are numero uno in their education system. A European-style government. And we're saying we have individuals, career politicians that are saying, in essence, no, we don't want to be like them. We want to do everything our way. So if it is, in fact, about a global economy, shouldn't we be falling in line with the European style and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have good schools again. We're going to take care of the senior citizens. We're going to take care of the poor. We're going to ensure that not 100 million people or 30 million people. We're dancing in the street because we're saying that some of this policy is going to help. It's going to help 9 million people to get coverage. Okay, that's also all well and good, but that's still
we got
41
million
Americans that don't. When you got European countries that say no, we're taking care of all of our citizens. It's plain and simple. We don't want it that way because they say no, like you said earlier, Michael. Oh, that's socialism. That's people say democracy, a capitalist society. You can have a capitalist society, make money, and still do for those, for your citizens. They're saying no. I'm wealthy. Do for yourself. You got to do for yourself. Don't worry. We can't be worrying about helping people. This is America. You help yourself. Well, everybody's not born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Help. You help people. You put them in a position to help. We talk about Christian and moral values. Jesus taught them how to. He said, "Hey, I'm gonna teach you how to fish, so you can eat every day." If the person don't know how to fish, then of course they're going to be looking for somebody to take care of them.
Exactly, guys.
Well, you're missing a point, though, and the European Union is wiping out some of these countries, and I think it was a big mistake to put them all under one umbrella. And now they're all having to bail all these other countries out. I think that Europe was better off without the European Union And secondly, in that regard, similarly, our federal mandates on states now have taken away a lot of individual rights for these states. For example, social programs or highway funds or whatever, the states have to capitulate now for the federal government. And we've talked about this before. No Child Left Behind, which is a real piece of crap legislation. They left. They didn't fund it, and they said, "But you have to do this every state." And so I think that these sweeping legislative policies are actually ruining these individual states, and I think that the European Union is not for long in Europe.
I think that the European Union has its holes, but I also believe overall I think that it can work. I think that what we're seeing, what the countries like a Germany who can help, say a Greece, they're acting like people represent the right here. Do for yourself. Well, it's hard to do for self if you are struggling, and if you signed into an agreement that this is what we're going to do, we're going to look out and help out when we can, then you can't start reneging, because once you do that, all the dominoes are going to start falling, and all the other countries that's involved, they're going to at some point in time
I understand
get hit.
that, but I don't think that the Germans signed up for that. Just like
no, they didn't. I can speak on that intimately because I was there when all of that was. The Germans are resentful, highly so, that their mark, which was a strong currency worldwide, is now, null and void because of their having to tote their responsibility with this Euro Union here. I think, to your point, Anthony, where the problem existed, as far as I can see it, is that the EU tried to copy what was done here.
Right.
In terms of capitalism and try to mix that in with some form of democracy, but I can tell you from seeing those East Germans that after all the partying was done and whatnot, and they realized there was no government stipend for them, that the DDR money was essentially toilet paper, and that their technology was all in the West, and that the Western Germans were making fun of them, calling them Easties, and just saying that they were the dumb country bumpkins because you just mortgaged your futures away by reunifying. They were sitting there resentful, and that caused a bunch of animus that ping-ponged from Austria to France to everywhere else, where the color factor poisoned the whole spectrum of this now. Now we know, because Europe's getting darker, they've got bigger problems that tie into the racial animus that has always existed in the United States. So we've got a crazy quilt of poison that is infecting this whole thing, with philosophies clashing on top of way old, centuries-old resentments that, unfortunately, you're not going to hear talked about on CNN or even the BBC, as efficient as the BBC has been, as far as being the only news agency that will give anybody even a grain of truth.
Yes. There's a great deal of animosity that's going on now, and it's been there. It's agreed. It's been festering for the last 10, 15 years, and now it's coming to a head. Diane, you may surely see them go back to, pre, the EU, because everybody is as you said, Michael. I think they went back and they started reading the fine print and said, "Wait a minute."
Well, they rushed it through. I don't think it was well thought out, and they didn't look at the social and economic implications of all this. They just said, "Kumbaya," and let's do it. And I think it was ill thought out legislation. It was crazy.
Well, guys, I think to the chat room's point, maybe somebody behind all of the scenes was really pulling all of this because, the agenda with this thing being rushed like it was really didn't benefit the countries who they were hoping would benefit from it. I mean, when I lived in Germany, the Deutschmark was super strong. I mean, as a matter of fact, to compare it to the krona or any other else, it was probably next to the pound the strongest currency in all of Europe. And now these people are pissed because inflation has jumped to such a degree that the euro has diminished the spirit of most working-class Germans. The chat room is just chock full of wisdom, and I want to pass on some of this stuff. As I'm scrolling here, notice that all of the campaign promises that representatives and senators make to get into office. And once they get in there, they fall into an agenda and forget their constituents because they don't matter. Their goal was to get in. And someone agrees with me regarding Dennis Kucinich, and I have to admit, because he represented a small section of the country in his congressional district, he was able to be effective. But his philosophy overall, long term in this country, obviously wouldn't work because they would hear that word socialism and get pissed. We get suggestions that we need to vote smart, and everybody is happy except us. And according to the chat room, we're not number one in anything. Our priorities are skewed. And, of course, if you like the European
I think we're number one in drug addiction.
Yeah, and people in prison. But, you know, if you're like the European way, then you're not a true patriot. But no one is actually happy at all over the world. The Illuminati bankers were kicked out of Iceland, and there were others in prison, and they took back their democratic way of life. We talked about this to a degree, and this hasn't been spoken anywhere. And it's one thing to fish, but when they take away the fishing poles, to your analogy, Anthony, well, you know, ain't nobody going there to get no fish. So we're talking about hoodwink, bamboozled, led astray. You know, we need I go on. Y'all know where I'm going with this.
Well, you have it goes back to, you know, some years, you know, when J.P. Morgan and it was like 5, 6 other individuals. Their goal was, as you said, take away the fishing poles, and we command everything, we control everything, and we bring the entire country, the United States, under one rule, our rule, and that's what we're going back to. And they're having a more effective time doing it this time around because there are too many people who simply aren't getting informed of what's going on in America and abroad and how they're being affected.
Guys, I got to take a break before we get in there, but again, the pot is hot. 718-508-9216. When I come back, I want to get something from Gary before he has to do his thing in the Cove. We will be back in a hot sec. Soul Tree Radio in the Raw.
I am a very stylish girl. How do I look?
Very good.
How do I look? How do I look? How do I look?
Very good. I must say I'm amazed.
I am a very stylish girl. A very stylish girl. A very stylish girl. A very stylish girl. How do I look?
Calling on very stylish girls, or those who want to be. The Diva Girl's Guide to Style and Self-Respect is the manual you need to have on your shelf or by your book side. Cheryl Ann Wadlington, along with Sonia Beard, put together the quintessential urban etiquette book for today's teen girl on the go. Now, Cheryl Ann has been doing this for a long time, but she decided to put her thoughts down on paper, and she has put together a pocketbook to success for young ladies everywhere. You need to check her out. The Diva Girl's Guide to Style and Self-Respect, so that you may be a very stylish girl, is available on Amazon.com and wherever books and ebooks are sold. For further information, check her out at Cheryl Ann Online. That's with a C, Cheryl Ann Online, to connect with her and the Diva Girl's Guide to Style and Self-Respect. And you can be a very stylish girl.
How do I look? How do I look? How do I look?
Very good. I must say I'm amazed.
I am a very stylish girl. 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 I am a very stylish girl.
Yes, indeed. Girlfriend does
Je ne sais
look
pas
good.
si vous êtes comme moi, les copines, mais j'adore me maquiller les yeux.
Well, that's all Greek to me. Sultry Radio in the Raw. Had to have a little moment of levity there, guys, as we are hot and heavy tonight. DJ Hunnycomb, Michael-louis Ingram here, along with my colleague, Digital Diane Grassi, and Gary Norris Gray, who will be stepping out for the Cove in just a hot sec. But the chat room has been cooking today, and I got to throw in the pot that the EU, according to the chat room, was a huge mistake.
Yeah,
Each country involved is falling. Look at Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain, and France as well. And we know, to go to the point I made about the animus of people of color there, Paris was literally burning when Northern Africans couldn't take the oppression anymore, and they rebelled because of lack of jobs and just the overall maltreatment that the French had put upon them. We know that there have been other incidents elsewhere. I lived in Germany in a time where, the Hitler Youth had come back and they couldn't do the High Hitler thing anymore, but they were singing Ausländer raus, outsiders out. They wanted the Turks and the Africans, those people who had come there to do the shit jobs, who were all intents and purposes Germans. And I have a sidebar about Italy and Mario Balotelli that we'll discuss later about that, out of the mix. Now, but Gary, since you got to go soon, if you have anything else to throw in the pot, brother, please do so.
No, we celebrated Independence Day on Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Now, whose independence are we talking about?
Good point.
There's a question. They put money into these fireworks because these go broke. Right here in California, we had two cities that went bankrupt this weekend. Yet they produced all these fireworks over the country, which cost millions of dollars. What kind of nonsense is this? And this is priorities lost.
Anthony, I don't know if you heard everything, but obviously Gary was making the point about the priorities being skewed, that, schools are bad, cities are going bankrupt, but yet they're going to spend millions of dollars to put bunting on things and do a little painting here and there to wave red, white, and blue with no guarantee that those flags are made here, by the way. And, what are we going to do about this when we see this and people are just kind of like falling in line with this?
Because there's not enough people out here in America that's bringing that to light. I mean, how are you going to go out here and spend hundreds of millions of dollars on parties and bands and things like that when there are literally people right down the street starving? Mm-hmm. Their education system is it's never been worse in this country. But you're saying, God bless America. God bless America. I love this country. But again, we have too many issues and too many problems to be running around, celebrating when we suppose we should be doing better. We should be doing better. We're talking about we don't have money for this and that, but again, you can find $2, $3, $4, $5, $20, $30 million for spending a day on Independence Day when you should have been putting that money to building bridges, addressing the wildfires that's going on. Mm-hmm. Again, social issues that should be addressed that's not being addressed in this country.
But don't you think that, again, it goes back to what we said before, you put a bow on it and then everyone thinks everything is fine.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It reminds me of the days when Reagan was president and they was trying to say, oh, look at D.C., Washington, D.C. is all beautiful. But it was like if you go down the street and hook 3 blocks over, you went into a drug-infested, crime-infested, murder capital of America at the time. And we're talking about in the mid-'80s, early '90s. They just put a bow tie on it and say this is the greatness of this country. America again, we're not great right now. We have the capability to be great again, but I'm deeply concerned that we have a great deal of people that sit at the seat of our government that simply does not want to see America be great right now.
Yes.
You have a man that's in office who is trying to right a lot of the wrongs, and you have a Congress that says, in essence, we rather see America burn than to support this individual on anything that's going to benefit America. Who does that? I mean, again, I'm not sitting here trying to incite riots or anything, but I can tell you this: you look at your history, look at what happened to France. The French Revolution. It started over something simple as, the aristocracy not taking care of their citizens, and they said we have had enough. Again, you had enough good people. You had good leaders, like Robespierre. Who knew how to write and knew how to get the people riled up and focused on getting their needs met. And it took my blood to do it, but they got things met. And I'm not sitting here, Michael and Diane and Gary, saying that that's what we need, but I'm saying there's still a great deal of rhetoric that's going on in America, and nothing is getting done.
I just want to say it doesn't have to be fancy. If we continue, if there are a number of blackouts that go on in this country in the next few weeks, and if the wildfires continue, and God forbid another hurricane hits the Gulf, and all of this is going on at once, people are going to take to the streets because our infrastructure and our systems are down and they're not being maintained. You don't have to be a political scientist anymore. People have about had enough, and the economy if I hear it another time, I'm going to scream. With the finance gurus saying the recession's been over for 3 years, the recession has never stopped, and I think that we're in a crisis mode, and we're just on the tipping point. And if our roads continue to crumble and our infrastructure and our electrical grid fails us this summer even more, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And I don't just mean politically. There's going to be riots in the street.
There's going to be chaos. No, we're talking anarchy.
That's right.
I'm 100% in concert with you on this, Diane, because we have to consider what Anthony just said. Here you had a son of a bitch like Mitch McConnell who said on national television, and that transmission everywhere eventually went around the world. So this is where, again, goes to the reflection of the global economy. You have a United States representative telling everybody that our job, our mandate, is to make sure that black man at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue does not get a second term. And you have to ask yourself, why the hell did not every American citizen say, what the fuck are you talking about? We hired you to go in there and help us take care of business.
Exactly.
There were billboards in Western New York. I remember this after Obama was elected. Then, Mr. President, I need a damn job. And that billboard could just as easily been put on Susquehanna Avenue in North Philly or Gary, Indiana, or anywhere else in this country. People need jobs, and the chat room is 1,000% in concert. The first issue is jobs, jobs. The second issue is jobs and more jobs. In the chat room, we're also hearing flags were probably made in China. We're not educating our youth.
Well, I have information on that because there was a bill that was supposed to have been passed this past week, which was stalled. Every federal building in this country is flying a flag from Mexico that was made in Mexico.
Right.
Oh my God.
Right. This is, and here's another reason why you have elected officials like, presidential candidate Mitt Romney telling us, telling America don't focus on European style government. You said it earlier before we went to the commercial break, Michael. What's happening over there? People are tired. What are they doing in the streets? They're taking the streets. They're saying, you know what? You don't want to listen to us, government? Okay, we got to set some things on fire. We got to turn some cars over, and now you'll get our attention. That's another reason why they don't want to talk about what's going on in Europe, because Americans still think that, well, it ain't that bad. It's that bad. You can't drive down the street
when people
without
are going to be in the dark.
Your bridge is going to fall on you.
Well, yeah, and people have been in the dark for 2 weeks in parts of Virginia. There were people in Connecticut in the dark for 3 weeks after Hurricane Irene.
Yep.
And this is the longest heat wave we've had in this part of the country in many, many years, and I'm just keeping my fingers crossed because we have utility people that have been locked out on top of everything else. So I'm not sure that Philly and New York and Newark and all these big cities around here are going to stand for this if we're all in the dark for 3 weeks.
No, not
true.
at all. I mean, Philadelphia, we just celebrated, like you said, we celebrated 4th of July, and we had, young men out here shooting. Cops had to shoot one of them because they shooting at each other, and one of them decides to turn a gun on the cops. Just yesterday, somebody was at City Hall with a gun, and they had to shoot him. So you can see the boiling point is coming, and yet we still hearing all nothing but empty rhetoric.
Right.
People need jobs. People need a whole lot in this country, and it's not being addressed. And this is one of the things that I talk about in my book, that, we have to start holding these individuals accountable. McConnell should have been ran out of his job when he
should have been trumped up on treason charges.
Because he was making it crystal clear,
That's right.
You, the American people, your concerns don't mean anything to this party.
That's right.
About making sure that this guy doesn't. That's something that you never heard. That was stuff that was said behind closed doors. It never went on record, went on TV, and made that public. And the media ate it up, and they didn't hold him accountable. And this is where. And then he just goes and talks about when Chris Wallace asked him about helping. I mean, you got 30 million people. So you're saying, what are you going to do for 30 million people that don't have any health care? Well, that's not the issue.
Yeah.
That's not the issue.
But see, he told the truth, Anthony. He told the truth because he was telling them that, and that's what bothers me, because he said that ain't the issue. Translation, we don't give a shit about y'all.
Right.
So why don't you guys get upset about this? Why don't you let this guy know that we elected you, we hired you, but yet you are going to say these things to them, and people are just going to absorb it? This is where the problem is, and this is where Diane, I think, is going, because she's saying between this and knowing that goods and services that we knew had always been there are not going to be there will cause this. You would have thought that bridge falling in Minnesota would have been everybody's wake-up call. I know you guys remember that. But there's one thing, from the way that the highway system was set up in 1937, you could have always depended on being able to get from point A to B without thinking that one day you'll drive across a bridge and that sucker's going to fall into the water and you're going to go with it.
Exactly. Here's what I've learned being in the community that I am in now, Michael and Diane. People only care when it affects them, when it affects their family. Let me give you an example. If one of their own, a son, a daughter, a nephew, or cousin, is shot or killed, they want justice.
Right.
They want everybody in the community to come out, testify, A, B, C, D, F, G. But if it has nothing to do with them directly or indirectly, they could care less. I'm not no snitch. I'm not having this conversation.
Thousands and thousands of people simultaneously, then it's different, because there's nowhere to go. If you don't have lights, you don't have food, you can't go to work, then that's when, like 9/11, people came together. That was short-lived too. But we have a perfect storm here. We have so many things going wrong at the same time in this country. So I'm maybe there's a silver lining to, God forbid we wind up in the dark, but maybe there's a silver lining to all of that.
Well, sometimes, again, not sitting here advocating violence, but for America to become somewhat of a nation that it needed to go to the next level, we had to go to war with each other. And it's getting to that point, because when our infrastructure is destroyed, our schools are failing, there's no jobs, like you said, heat waves, hunger, poverty has never been at its highest in this country, then that is the recipe for some of the darkest and gravest violence in the annals of humanity. And I think if we're not very careful, that's where we're going to be. We're getting a taste of it with a great deal of the murders that's happening, like in Philadelphia and other cities and stuff. But I think, as you said, Diane, the perfect storm will be where it'll just be absolute bedlam, that everybody will be fighting everybody, and then all these hostilities are going to come out.
Anarchy.
All the pent up racism, the class warfare, all of that is going to boil over into some of the, like I said, some of the greatest violence ever.
Here's something to think about, guys. Let's throw this into the pot. With this perfect storm that's being hypothesized here, wouldn't you think this would be a ripe climate for a so-called terrorist act to happen?
Oh, it's on the way. We
know this. We know this, but see, when you see the animus in New York, when people from Consolidated Edison, for those outside of the area, that's our power company, when you see them deliberately want to jerk around the workers and have the management people, some who probably were workers before, come out knowing that we really don't want to be here. We should have the professionals do their job, especially in a crisis situation where you've got an act of nature coming into the effect, whether you want to call it global warming or heat wave or what have you, and you see no one doing anything about it because they want to win.
The terrorists don't. They know that we don't need them. We're going to self-destruct on our own.
Exactly. That's part of it. From the chat room I'm getting, as always, if people don't get out and vote, it will be business as usual. But this revolution, to some feel, may not happen because there is too much apathy. But the apathy will be the death of the republic one way or another. Yeah. And it needs to happen between now and Election Day because, according to the chat room from others, it's not apathy, it's fear that is the real issue here. Some of us are scared. It's tens of millions of us. People are mad and they're not going to take it anymore. How they put that anger out reflects the difference. 219, you're on the line here, Sultry Radio on the Raw.
Yeah, hi. I just called in to listen because I don't have access to listening from where I am. So I want to listen for a minute, and
sure.
I'll appreciate chiming in if, in fact, if I'm so moved.
Thank you for listening. Where are you calling from, sir?
Calling from a place called Valparaiso, Indiana.
All right, Indiana.
Right.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I'll put you on mute. You can stay in the mix as we go through.
And I'll press 1 if I...
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, press 1 if you want to jump back in. Back in the chat room, as always, if people don't get out and vote, it will be business as usual. Yes, they will be killing each other, which is exactly what the GOP wants. And it is part of a larger design where they want to get rid of many of those people who they feel are disposable or worth discarding because it doesn't suit the overall agenda. I have to take another break. Let's get back to this when we come back. We will talk further about the book, and the chat room is hot. It is fantastic. Valparaiso, thank you for coming in there because you're right in the Rust Belt, and that might speak to the next line of questioning for Mr. Anthony Johnson. You are in the strength of Sultry Radio in the Raw.
Come down. Come on in and dig it, Lefty.
Yes, indeed. They're digging us today. Sultry Radio on the Raw. DJ Hunnycomb, Michael-louis Ingram here in the house along with Digital Diane Grassi. Our guest, well, not our guest, one of our now Soul Patrollers, Mr. Anthony P. Johnson, has been sitting under the tree with us, relating his personal ideologies, some of which manifested in his first book, We Can Be the Outcome, available on Amazon. And as we were going into the break, I was thinking about certain things, and I want to throw this into the mix because Diane brought up a good point about how the power being on or off, the lack of response time, and people sitting in the dark may have them get that moment where they were like, yeah, I've had enough of this shit. But in reality, I think there's a bigger issue going on here. Someone in the chat room made the point about, hey, look, billions are going to be spent for a job that pays $400,000, and why would you go through all of this? Well, I'm contending that something else is going on here, that there's an industry that's been made just off of the money that has been spent, that's been released by Citizens United, so that corporations, through whether they do it by their own design, whether it's done by rich individuals through super PACs, can continue this dastardly nonsense of spending untold amounts of money and have it stay among themselves.
Right.
Think about it. I mean, whenever you see a spot for a candidate where they want to trash somebody and all of this stuff, it's like, well, hold on a sec here. Who is getting this money? Okay, the TV stations get it. You know, some blogs might get some of this, like Huffington Post or whatever and whatnot, and this money ain't trickling down anywhere. Now,
right.
We know the First Brother man, you know, respects a lot of the things that Reagan put into the mix, but that trickle-down theory does not manifest itself as all of this money that's being spent on this campaign, on these commercials, on infomercials. To some extent, they spent over a half hour of talk time to talk up Newt Gingrich in one particular state. Basically gave him a half hour free airtime. Anthony, do you know what you could do if you had a half hour free airtime to do what you want to? You know, back in the 180 in Philly. So
yeah, I would have been able to show the people that, you know, don't go and vote for this man because he's a Latino. I understand that this is a 96%, you know, composition of Latinos, but don't vote for him or the other candidate because they're Latinos. Vote for the candidate who's going to serve you very, very well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, 30 minutes dedicated. I mean, there's so much more that you could do. But this is another reason why people don't get involved in politics, because they say, I can't win. It's the David Goliath philosophy. Yes. How can I go against something like that when I'm using my money from my paycheck to finance my campaign, when these individuals have unlimited resources to advertise and to belittle me and things of that magnitude? They say, I don't want to go through that, because you come in thinking that, everybody has a fair opportunity to run for politics and to do well. Well, Citizens United changed that spectrum.
Well, it wasn't
forever.
fair before that, but it
before
just made it worse.
Right, because of
the problem with
campaign
Citizens United, though, is that you don't have to disclose how much and who donated all of that money.
Exactly. Yeah, but yeah, because of the fact that we continue, our elected officials continue to fail to address the campaign finance debacle, because everybody's making money from it. If you're getting a great deal of money from all of this, think about it this way. Huffington Post and a couple of other newspapers, Washington Post also put something out recently about the 17 Democrats that voted in favor to hold Eric Holder.
That's right.
Right. 17
because of the NRA.
Were Democrats.
Yeah, because of the NRA threatening them.
Huh?
Yeah, because of the NRA threatening them, because they said that they're going to take a poll, or rather a count of who is going to vote against this premise, so that we know we're going to put you on our personal hit list and make sure that you don't get reelected, because we will flex our lobby muscles and get you. But
and if you were not looking to make politics a career, would it matter? No,
exactly.
It wouldn't matter.
Why would it matter? Exactly.
Say, okay, you can do whatever you want. I'm not in this to be here for the next 30, 40 years. And I'm not here to make a lot of money. I'm here to serve the will of the people.
Well, then you're talking about term limits. That's the only way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
We got to have term limits.
If the president can run for 2 terms, then nobody else in Congress on down should be
right.
allowed to serve more than 2 terms. That's just common sense.
Well, we should take the Senate and chop it down from 6 years to 4 years.
Chop it big time. It should not be longer than 4 years for anybody. But having said that, you just brought up something, Anthony, that I think matters here, and that's the element of common sense. I mean, okay, let's take apathy into the mix, let's take fear into the mix, but common sense is something that's missing here. That's making you, ironically, with the Arsenio Hall show maybe coming back, making you say, because if I'm a woman and someone has told me that in spite of the fact that I still make 77 cents on the dollar,
72.
I'm gonna vote for you because you agree with this premise, and on top of that, 3 of my sister senators also signed the petition saying that, the guy's right. You shouldn't make more than 77 cents on the dollar. So, disregard that. I even though I've got the same body parts and gender as you, I'm working for somebody else, and it ain't got nothing to do with you. So these common sense things where you would think, okay, why would I do this? Why would I be party to somebody who disrespects me like this? And they want to tell me with a straight face that they want my vote and they're working in my best interest.
Exactly. And this is what but something my old man and my mom used to always say, we all don't have common sense. Mm-hmm. Many of us don't have common sense. I mean, go back with the legislation of Planned Parenthood. You had women that were saying, oh, no. In essence, you're saying, no, go ahead and use that coat hanger.
That's right.
And these are women.
Oh, I'm being corrected by the chat room. It's 72 cents on the dollar.
That's what I just said.
That's
I wanted to comment on
72
that.
cents.
Mm-hmm. In 1984, it was 77 cents. Mm-hmm. Since then, we've lost a nickel.
Damn.
Yeah.
Now you know that's gangster. They're going to tell you it's okay, vote for me anyway, but you're still going to get
backwards.
cheated. This is terrible. Guys, we could go on this forever, but I want to make sure that Anthony gets his shameless plug in for his book, and it's not shameless because I think it warrants a lot of folks out there checking out what this young man has to say. So, Anthony, please, the floor is yours.
Well, it is. All I can say is that we can be the outcome. Co-written with Terri Willmott. It's a very good book. I think people will read it, and I think it'll leave you thinking about what's going on. Not just at the national level, but what's going on at our local level. I think one thing that I've also tried to talk about in the book is that we have to stop putting all the blame on one person, whether it be someday Hillary Clinton or the current President President Barack Obama. We cannot continue to say it's his fault when we can reach out and talk to our legislators at the local level. Mm-hmm. We have to hold them accountable. I think in many respects they enjoy the fact that we skip right over them and focus on the national elected officials. They're all in the same game, but we have to address that. We can be the outcome. It talks about these things. It talks about my travels and my trials that's going on in America and abroad. And I just hope that people get an opportunity to read it and to reflect on it and again to participate in this. America we're not number one in the things that we should be, that we once were, but we sure can be. And I think it starts with addressing the current crop of people that's sitting at the head of our government. And I don't like who's sitting at the head of our government. We Can Be the Outcome talks about some of those individuals. It talks about some of the radio personalities who also have a great big stake in this and how they are breathing the fires of hate in this country, like a Rush Limbaugh. We have to address these, and we have to start making these individuals accountable. And one thing, as one of the and you said somebody said in the chat room, we have to let go of the fear because that's what sells. Fear sells. You know, when you talk about the individuals who supported the Nazis, they'll tell you, I never supported them, but I was afraid. I was afraid to say anything because what would have happened to me. But then I always say, look at the few that did stand up. Some of them lost their lives at the hands of, but they stood up. They said this was wrong, and I'm going to be held accountable for it. And I'm holding you guys accountable by saying that it is wrong. I think we can be the outcome. Well, I hope it touches some individuals to motivate them to get back in the game, to drop their fears, and say and demand more from our government.
Well,
I'm afraid that if we don't, I believe that it's going to come a time when, as Diane said, it's going to be that perfect storm. That perfect storm where violence is going to reign, and it's not going to be one of those things where it's going to rain for some time. We may be looking at a long period where America is at war with itself again. And this time, unlike the first time, it's going to be more violent and it's going to be more costly.
Every great civilization fell. Rome fell. The British Empire fell apart. You know, we know history's cyclical. If nothing else, we need to pay attention to what time it is.
Yes, sir.
Well, Anthony, we know what time it is here. We're not done yet. We're going over bonus hours here, but I wanted to make sure you got your link for your booking, and I'm sure I'll get to speak to Terri later. We'll make sure that link is available on our Facebook page as well. And for those who don't know, you can check us out on our Facebook page. Just type in Sultry Radio in the Raw. We are there for you, and we are so proud of you that you took this step, because you definitely could have gone in other directions, but to go the same route that you went, with great power comes great responsibility. When you see something and you know how something is, you can either turn away from it or face it, and you chose to face it, and we have mad respect for you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
All right, guys, when we are close to the end of the live broadcast, we will still be going on as long as you're online or in the chat room. When we come back, Diane, your paisan and mine, Mario Balotelli, has caused a furor in Italy that needs to be brought up, which is in concert with what we touched on earlier. Apparently, Balotelli is not a real Italian, according to his own paisans. They said, you can't be a black Italian and be Italian. So, as we're saying, this is going to be interesting. So, we got some abundanza in the pot. Come back after the hour. For those who are going to leave, Gary Gray and the Gray Leopard Cove is in effect at 4 o'clock. See you in a couple seconds. Sultry Radio in the Raw.